This week on the Preppy Podcast, you'll hear an interview with Sheridan French, the women's clothing designer. I love this conversation because Sheridan started her brand many years ago and then paused, took a break because she had some personal things going on, and then relaunched the brand again. I think it's a great story of a comeback and that everything happens for a reason and there's a right time for everything. So I think it took a lot of courage for her to do that. And we discussed that in this interview, which I find so interesting. So let's get into this week's episode. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys that you can shop many of the brands that I've featured on the podcast at thepreppypodcast.com, shop Preppy. You'll find things like clothing, gifts, home decor, jewelry, even kids' clothes. So many great finds there. And it's a great way to support these small businesses and myself and the podcast to continue on. And lastly, before we get into the interview, though, I want to give you a little sneak peek. We are working behind the scenes on the first ever podcast retreat. So it will be this summer. I'll be sharing more details hopefully in the next few weeks, but just keep that in mind. And if you're a brand who might want to collaborate on something for that, let me know. I'm hoping to do more of these as the podcast grows, but it'll be the first ever retreat and I have so many fun things planned for it. And as always, I'm going to be doing a few live podcast interviews throughout the next season or two. So let me know if you want me to stop by your town or city or you'd like to host one. I will be doing one in Florida next week, actually at a private event, but I will have the recording for everyone to listen and watch after the fact. And then I am planning one hopefully for Dallas and Atlanta and Charleston. So lots and lots of exciting things coming up. All right. So why don't you let everyone know who you are, where you live, and what you do?
Hi, sure. Okay, so my name is Sheridan. I have the clothing line Sheridan French. It's a brand that's a celebration of life and fun and just full of joy and ease and confidence. And I live in Fort Worth, Texas, with my six babies. Hence why I'm hiding in one of their bedrooms to film this, so I'm not interrupted, hopefully.
I love it. You are a multitasking woman, having six kids and an amazing business. So I always like to start the podcast off with tell me a little bit about you as a kid. I find that so much of who we were as little kids, we kind of retreat back to that as we're later developing as adults. So if you were creative, if you were entrepreneurial, if you had like a business, a little side hustle, even as a kid, tell me about you.
Yes, so I was always, very creative. When I was little, my mom let me dress myself from the time I was 2 years old and started having an opinion. I would leave the house with belts around me as necklaces and all sorts of, like, completely weird and bonkers stuff. So, always was a very free to express myself, and also creative, just I grew up in a long line of creative women. My great-grandmother was a seamstress, and my grandmother is an artist. My mom is an interior designer, so it's very much in my blood. I started going to Dallas with my mom when I was 6 weeks old and did that for, you know, all through middle school, high school, picking out fabric for her clients and working on rooms with her and homes. So I fell in love with prints that way and colors and combining different types of textures. All of that just really formed my design aesthetic. And then also when I was 12, I started embellishing t-shirts and took them to a little boutique down the street from TCU, which is the college here, and asked if they would be interested in selling them. And the owner said yes. So I brought 8 up there and they all sold the first day. So he asked me to make some more. And that was my little entrepreneurial business that I continued through middle school and high school, and it
Wow.
beat the heck out of babysitting.
Yeah.
Um, the pay was better.
And you don't
Um,
have to deal with little kids then either. Or stay home on Friday nights.
Completely. It was great on a lot of fronts. So, that was really how I got started on the business front, for myself, like my first, um, experience and exposure to that. And it just kind of continued on, um, into college
Yeah.
and after, and here I am.
I love that. I feel like so many people that I interview on this podcast, they had some sort of a little business when they were a kid, whether it's, painting something and selling it or making jewelry. There's so many people that I've had who mentioned businesses as kids. And I think that's so great that you and those interviewees, they had that support and that encouragement from someone in their life and family to believe in their creativity and kind of give them the reins to learn about entrepreneurship and business back when they were a little kid.
Yes, that was very formative for me. And I was allowed to make, any mistakes
Mhm.
with it as far as what I was investing and how much the Gap t-shirts were, and then my time that I spent putting into it and what the embellishments cost, what the, um, you know, thread to embroider cost. I just did all sorts of things. And it was very real time learning,
Mhm.
and, no different than right now. Every day I'm learning something new.
Yeah. So when it came time for college, where and what did you end up studying? Was it something relating to fashion or design or business?
So I went the business route.
Okay.
I looked at going to schools like Parsons or FIT, but
Mhm.
I wasn't certain. I didn't know that I wanted to do that for, the next 50 years of my life, and I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into that. And so I got my degree in management and then business. It was a master's program. I went to college in the University of St. Andrews in
Mhm.
Scotland,
Oh wow.
and it's a little bit different than the United States as far as their degrees and kind of the bachelor's and things like that. But um, got a master's from them. And then that is when I started working in London. My first summer over there, I um, interned at the Prada press office. And both Prada and Miu Miu were done in house.
Mhm.
And that was the most incredible experience of my life, very formative, as far as exposure to different cultures and fashion. There were two Americans in the office, one another intern from Hong Kong, and
Mhm.
everyone else was Italian.
Yeah.
So it was like nothing I had ever experienced before, and completely outstanding and fabulous. And I mean, I couldn't wait to walk to work every day and be there all day long. And every day was new. So it's great.
So what initially brought you over to Europe to decide to go to school in Scotland and then stay over there?
I wasn't planning on it.
Mhm.
I knew I didn't wanna be here in Fort Worth. My
Okay.
whole family, grandparents on down, aunts, uncles, parents, brother, everyone went to TCU.
Mhm.
Um, and I just have always kind of walked to the beat of my own drum and was looking elsewhere all across the states. I had not even considered going international. But I went on a trip with my junior year in high school, the juniors and seniors. We went on a Europe trip for about a month. And while I was over there, and the group was in Edinburgh, one of my dad's first cousins from Texas, he did oil in Aberdeen, and then retired to St. Andrews and has a bed and breakfast on the old course. Um,
Oh,
so St. Andrews is just an hour north of Edinburgh. So anyway, we were in the whole group. The school group was in Edinburgh, and I hadn't seen him since I was like 10. So I just popped on the train and went up to say hi. And I mean, my gosh, I was walking on those cobblestone streets and seeing these buildings built in, the 1400s, and my jaw hit the floor,
yeah,
and it was
beautiful.
an instant pull and desire, and I thought, "I've gotta go." I have to try it. And so I applied, I got in, I didn't know a single soul. I was only 17 years old. I was very young. So I got on a plane and flew from Texas to Scotland. And I thought, I'll give it this semester. And if it's
Mhm.
too cold or there's too much rain or whatever, I'll come back. And
Mhm.
I loved every split second. So it was outstanding.
It's so beautiful over there. I could see how once you go, you're like, I don't want to leave. I want to stay here.
Oh my gosh, it's like walking through a storybook. There's 4 main streets of the town. Most are cobblestone. You break your stilettos, your heels are destroyed, but it's so fun and worth it.
Totally. Okay, so then after graduation, you're at Prada. And kind of what was the journey then of your career trajectory from Prada leading up to deciding to launch your own business? What did that look like?
So I wasn't at Prada after graduation. I moved back here. I
Okay,
interned at Prada all my summers there.
got it. Okay.
Um, and um, it was amazing. They had offered me the position of to be the press officer for Europe.
Mhm.
But I wanted to come back to the States and be here with my family. Um, and I had considered kind of starting a business with my mom. I wasn't really sure. I knew I wanted to do my own thing. But I got married and started having babies right away. I was 24 when I had my first. Um, and then loved being a mother, but I already knew very early on that it wasn't all that I wanted to do, that I needed to have something else creative going on in my life, to just be more fulfilled. And so when my son was 9 months old, I reached out to a friend of mine from St. Andrews, who had worked with me on the student fashion shows there and things like that. And she put me in touch. She was from Bali and put me in touch with some production contacts there.
Okay.
So I had no idea what I was doing. I had never, met this person, and I said, "Go to market and get me some fabric and let's make a tunic." I mean,
Mhm.
it was kind of fly by the seat of my pants, completely haphazard approach. No roadmap, certainly not a business plan. I just knew that I needed more,
Yeah.
and so decided we're gonna try. I'm gonna try, and maybe I'll get samples. I mean, I had no idea if they were just gonna take my money and run. It was just so ridiculous, in hindsight. But so that was kind of the beginning. 4 months later, I had samples in hand, um, and I had spent that time kind of compiling an Excel spreadsheet and cold calling. Retailers that carried other brands that I admired and trying to get the buyer's info and anything I could like that. And I had, just over 300, and I made, like, paper lookbooks, like old school paper lookbooks,
Mhm.
and mailed them out, snail mail, and was saying, "This is my line and what I'm doing." Um, and I heard back from 10, and 7 said yes and picked up the
Okay.
line. And so that was my first year, and it was enough for me to break even. And I reinvested every single penny, and just kept going from there. And in that time, I also was found out I was pregnant with my second. So I just hit the ground running and had all sorts of things going on.
I'm sure that those 7 initial stores that picked up the line, not only did they allow you to break even, but gave you the confidence to know what you were doing. You had something there, right?
Yes, it was so validating and fulfilling and encouraging. Um, and I was kind of shocked and excited, not because I didn't believe in what I was doing, but because you just don't know if anyone else is going to see what you see, um,
Mhm.
or be connected to it in the same way. You can believe in something as much as you want to, but if it doesn't resonate with someone else, you know, you're not going to get anywhere. So it was good.
Yeah. So you have, these these 7 stores and you have your product then kind of what did it look like in terms of at that time, did you launch a website? When does the website come into play? At that time, was there social media that you were using to your advantage yet, or does that come later down the line? Like, tell me about the growth of the brand and those growing pains in between.
Sure. So yeah, Instagram did not exist. Um, I so I did it for 4 years,
Mhm.
um, from the time I launched in 2010, and then the tail end of 2014, I knew I was going to pause. I was pregnant with my 4th. Um, she was gonna be born when my oldest was still 4, so they were very close, back to back 4 babies. And I was still doing it all myself. I had no help. I was running it out of my house. My marriage was really struggling, and I just thought, I can't do all of this
Yeah.
right now. Something's got to give. Um, so I made the decision to pause, knowing it was pause and not stop.
Mm.
That kind of allowed me to be okay with stepping back. It made it more palatable because I wasn't making this final decision of I can't do it, or whatever else. It could allow me the freedom to breathe and
Mhm.
just say, even if it's not right now, maybe later.
Yeah.
Um, so I threw myself into being a mom and just making sure that I gave everything I had to my marriage, and didn't want to leave anything on the table there. And so I did so for 5 years. I took kind of a hiatus, and when that baby was about to go to kindergarten, was when I knew I was going to start back. I'd made the decision to file for divorce, and so the timing aligned very well with relaunching. And so I relaunched in 2019. Um, and in 2020, March 2020 is when my website launched. And so that was very fortuitous. It was actually March 7th. So, like a week before everything started shutting
Yeah.
down with COVID. Um, and so it allowed me to keep going, which was wonderful because then I was like a newly single mom, and it changed the game for me. I wasn't doing this as a fun side hustle
Mhm.
anymore, in between carpool and getting together with friends and all of that. I mean, it
Yeah.
was, this is how I'm going to provide for my family, and I'm a single mom of 4, and I have to put food on the table some way. So um, it became real
Yeah.
really quickly. Mhm.
Well, I first want to say I think it took so much courage of you to back then take a break and pause because I think so many people would really struggle with that and maybe run the business into the ground and then later be like, oh, maybe I should have done something else. And just to know you didn't want to give it up forever. I remember that time because I have been wearing your stuff for years when you started initially. And I remember, you taking a pause from that. And I think that takes courage and was a smart business move on your part that I think a lot of people listening could get a lot of advice from it and learn from you sharing that.
Well, thank you. And it was not easy
Mhm.
to make that decision, but at the same time, I knew it was what I had to do. Um, and it was terrifying, though. It felt like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea at the time which direction my life was going to take. Um,
Mhm.
it was really frightening, but I didn't want fear to be the driver of a decision. I didn't want to stay because I was afraid of the unknown.
Mhm.
Um, and I um, I just had to trust in myself that I had built it once and that I could build it again. Um,
Definitely.
and in hindsight, it
So
was the best thing I ever did.
yeah, I think yeah, that was such great advice what you just shared. So when you relaunch the brand, what does that look like? Like how was that different? Obviously, you launched with the website and that it's a different perspective, it sounds like, because now you're thinking, this is not a hobby, this is an actual business to provide for my family. But in terms of what you were launching with, was it different styles? Was it same styles? Was it, a fully built out website then with social media? Tell me about how that was different and what it looked like.
It was largely the same as far as body silhouettes.
Mhm.
I have always been very purposeful with designing classic pieces that I can buy in 2014 and wear 2024 and it still feels fresh.
Mhm.
I don't want to put anyone in a position of investing in something like that and then it's a waste.
Yeah.
I want things to hang well within a woman's wardrobe for however many years she chooses to wear it, or if her daughter wants to wear it or
Yeah.
something. Um, I think a lot of my clothes are very generational and it sounds maybe cliche or cheesy, but like one of my favorite silhouettes is this Lillian maxi skirt that we have, and I will wear it all the time with like a chambray button down. I got a picture several months ago of a 98-year-old grandmother walking her son. Her grandson down the aisle at his wedding, walking him up to the altar wearing it. Same one. And it
Yeah.
looked outstanding on her. And I don't want my pieces to have an age, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yep.
It was largely the same core bodies.
Mhm.
I did experiment with the Kelly dress that first year, and
Mhm.
up until a couple years ago, that was my best seller since I had relaunched. And so that was really fun. I was entering though the business not only with it needing to be something different for me and my family on the financial front, but I went in with the confidence of experience,
Mhm.
and I wasn't, afraid. I
Mhm.
knew that I could do it. I mean, I never doubted myself. I
Mhm.
just, if there was ever a glitch or an issue, I would be solution oriented and find a
Yeah.
problem and adjust where we needed. Um, and so it was just, I was just much more, not much older, but I just had a different lens that I was viewing it through. And so it had a lot more meaning.
That makes total sense. So, so much of your brand, I think, are your beautiful prints and the colors. So, tell me a little bit about, the importance of those, your inspiration behind them, and the joy that I think those add to closets all around the country.
So yes, I love prints. As I said, growing up with my mom being an interior designer and putting together bedrooms that needed to coordinate with living rooms and, a piping on a kitchenette window bench or whatever, everything has to tell the story cohesively. And so that's just naturally how I design collections is um, making sure it all ties together in a pretty but unexpected way where it's not too matchy-matchy, but it still works. Um, and I forgot what the other part that you asked. Oh, Prince.
Um,
Good.
yeah,
Yes, that's what we
Prince and
started.
joy.
So Prince are, that's the cornerstone. I have seen us as a lifestyle brand ever since I started, knowing that I could start with clothing, but I wanted to expand into wallpaper and fabric by the yard and have our prints on accessories and all sorts of things. Um, so I work really hard to design unique prints that you're not going to see anywhere else. And I don't even want them to feel like something you see somewhere else. I want it to be very unique where, well, the greatest compliment I can get is when someone sends me a message on Instagram and it's like, I saw someone across the street and I knew they were wearing a Sheridan French dress. So I ran across and said how much I liked it. Um,
Oh,
so just to be able to stand out and be recognizable for the prints and the vibrancy.
yeah, for sure. Now, I'm curious, what would you say is the hardest and your least favorite part of having this business? And then what's the best or the easiest part?
The hardest of business in general, I think just being an entrepreneur is that it never stops. I don't get to clock out at 5 or 6 or 7. It's and it's hard to really articulate what that's like if you haven't walked that path yourself, because it is 24 hours a day. You're thinking of it when you're in the carpool line or when you're making dinner or at 2 in the morning if the baby's up teething. There's always something that's on your mind about what you're doing well, what you could be doing differently, how something else needs to be structured. Um,
Mhm.
Deadlines, contracts. It's all on your shoulders. It's a very, very lonely. And
Mhm.
I think it's really easy to focus on um, the glamour, or however people see it, as being in the fashion industry.
Mhm.
Um, but it is a grind every single day to be at the top and be, the one that is making all the decisions and that people are looking at to, guide
Mhm.
every single facet, whether it's, marketing and PR and influencer, or operations, or wholesale expansion and growth, or the
Mhm.
overall strategy, and how are we going to scale and when, and what do these numbers need to look like, and how are our margins, and if we do this fabrication here, how does that improve this? I mean, it's
Never
never ending.
ending. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really never ending, and, it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not for everyone, but also, I would lose my mind if I were at a desk,
Yeah.
9 to 5. I
Mhm.
That sounds like more of a, nightmare for me, and I couldn't do that with my schedule with all my children. Like, I have to have the flexibility, of being able to make my own hours. So, I think that that's the most difficult part is,
Mhm.
just having it all on my shoulders, and ultimately it all, you know,
Comes down to
falling on
you.
me,
Yeah.
um, and juggling it with life. The hardest part about business is, as, a whole, is that never, never-ending quest for balance with being a mom, and I feel like balance is just such a four-letter word. I hate it. I hate it when people are saying we have to strive for this. Like, it's just, can we just let it go? It's just
Yeah.
an impossibility. There's
Yep.
no and like balance can be whatever it looks like, whatever it needs to look like for you.
Yep.
Some days are going to be more business heavy. Some days are more
Mhm.
mom heavy. You just got to figure it out and do what works. And when you make a mistake, that's fine. Dust your boots off and regroup. Um, every day's new. It's a fresh start. As far as the best thing, I really enjoy the creative side of it. I love forming the collections and starting out with, how is summer 2026 going to go? What's our
Mhm.
color palette? What do I want, to be highlighted as far as print direction? What silhouettes are we going to do that are repeat, and what new styles are we going to incorporate? Um,
Mhm.
so I enjoy that part. I always enjoyed the creative. So being able to carve out parts of my day and focus on that and get a little bit of a reprieve from the businessy side is always fun.
Yep. No, I'm sure you have so much fun creating prints and collections, and I can't imagine it must be so fun. Now, I'm curious, who would be your dream customer? If you could have anyone in your clothes, who would you pick?
Well, she'd never wear them because I feel like her line is competition, but I love Reese Witherspoon. Um, I think she's so peppy and fun and just a champion of women. Um, she's her own powerhouse, and I really uh, like her a lot. I love Julia Roberts. I
Mhm.
love Demi Moore.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot. I could give you such a long list. There's so many strong women, so many strong women.
Yep. Now, what's your personal favorite product on your site right now? And then what would you say is your bestseller?
Oh man, my personal favorite. I love our new every body
Mhm.
dress. I wish I would have had that. I mean, before now, when I was pregnant, postpartum, going through my divorce, when I gained a lot of weight, like I just would have loved to have that in my closet. It's a one size fits most dress,
Yeah.
and so it's truly an investment piece. It can carry us through all seasons of life, ebbing and flowing, no matter what we're going through and what our waistline is going through, or you know what our boobs are going through, if we're nursing or not. I mean, there's so much. Women's bodies are amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that. And I really hope that it offers women versatility that they haven't had.
Mhm.
Um, so that they can have a piece that they know they're going to feel beautiful in
Mhm.
and not have to stress. Like they're not going to have to suck in their stomach or worry about their thighs or, anything like that. So I'm obsessed with it, and I really love it. It's outstanding. I'm super proud of it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so beautiful.
my let's see, my favorite piece on the side, and then what was the next? My
The customer
overall
favorite or
favorite.
bestseller.
Oh, Eloise. Our
Mm.
Eloise dress has been our bestseller, gosh, since we introduced it 3 years ago, I think. Every season, every collection, it's Eloise. She is so outstanding, so flattering, really versatile
Mhm.
because she looks great with flats, like whether it's slides or like a cute ballet flat, or if you want to dress her up with like wedges or something for a luncheon,
Yeah.
even an outdoor wedding. Like she's just incredible. And it just like the way the elastic is positioned on the waist, it like snatches your waist in, and it's beautiful. It's super feminine.
So flattering. Now, I'm curious, what is a resource, whether it's a book or a website or a newsletter? What's a resource that you could share with listeners that you think they could get something out of?
In general or for like business
More
purpose?
business or, maybe life even.
So from a business perspective, I really love scaling up.
Okay.
It's like a case study guidebook Bible for
Mhm.
if and when you decide to scale, what do you need to consider?
Mm.
It reads like a textbook, and by that I mean like every sentence is purposeful. There's no fluff. It is very detailed and incredibly helpful. I don't
Mhm.
know how I if someone has not read it, I don't feel like they're truly equipped to run their business.
Okay. That's a good one. Everyone should take note and check it out for sure. Now, in terms of marketing, what would you say is really working and has been helping the brand? Like, are you leaning into email marketing, influencers? Where would you say right now?
So we have only recently brought marketing in-house.
Hmm.
Historically, we had done contract-based work
Hmm.
with freelance marketers, and I learned a lot. The downside of that is that everyone's going to have kind of their different strategy and way to approach things, and um, they're not giving their whole self to the brand. And
Hmm.
so, by nature, their time is segmented
Hmm.
with different companies with different brands. And so that's why I ultimately decided to bring it in house, because
Hmm.
I wanted someone who was living and breathing Sheridan French and could
Hmm.
really give us all of their time and thoughts and energy. Um, and it's going to be pivotal having someone who can give, 24/7 of their work time
Yeah.
to us, because they really, they're caring about it in a different way
Yeah.
and able to really dig in and looking at different, KPIs or metrics of paid ads and
Hmm.
all sorts of things like that. As far as what's working or working best with that, I think it's being able to have the paid ads and that strategy and oversight all in-house.
Yeah.
Um, I think not having to have the agency fees for that
Mhm.
on top of
Mhm.
paying has been really key. So
Mhm.
that's where I'm seeing a lot of success and growth there.
Yeah. Now, I feel like you've offered so many tidbits of advice so far on this episode in terms of, believing in yourself and getting back up and figuring it out. But what's a piece of advice you'd give to someone listening, whether they are in their business or they're aspiring to maybe jump out and start something on their own? What's a piece of advice you'd like to share?
Mm, I think you need to really know who you are.
Hmm.
Um, there are so many opportunities to be influenced by other people's voices and opinions. And if you do not have an incredibly solid footing and belief in what you're doing
Hmm.
and where you want to go and how you're going to get there, um, the tail can start wagging the dog really quickly.
Hmm.
And it's a disservice to whatever you're wanting to create if you veer from that mission and that belief.
Hmm.
Don't let others tell you how to grow. Um, have that compass pointing north because you're pointing it north.
Yep.
Don't rely on someone else, which is very hard. It can be very challenging
Yeah.
because um, everyone's going to give input based on their own experience.
Hmm.
And it probably won't be wrong, but it just may not be right for you.
Yep. That's a great piece of advice. So, since this is the Preppy podcast, I always ask everyone, what does Preppy mean to you? So, how would you describe Preppy?
Um, Gosh, I feel like preppy can mean so many different things to so many different people, depending on your upbringing or lifestyle or where you are in the world. Um, I'd say that the brand, it's more like of a boho preppy,
Hmm. Hmm.
bohemian preppy.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people have compared us to kind of a modern or contemporary Lily Pulitzer, which I find incredibly flattering. She's like the queen of Prince. I don't think we're that preppy, but I love, being able to call her kind of inspiration and where she started and what she's gone. I definitely do identify with like the Palm Beach aesthetic and
Hmm.
Palm Royale. But I want to be a little bit more fun and free,
Hmm.
barefoot and messy hair kind of than
Beach
that.
chair.
So
Right?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that it just, preppy, it's evolved.
Yep.
It's not the pink and green tennis skirts only.
Hmm.
It can be hand-me-down cardigans. There's so much. You just make it
Definitely.
work for you. Just do you.
Yeah.
You do you.
Yep. Now, anything you can share with listeners that you're working on? Any sneak peeks, upcoming collections, that sort of thing?
Gosh, okay, so right now we're about to finalize summer and high summer of 2026.
Mhm.
So we work way ahead. I never know what year it is, ever. Uh, and most exciting collaboration, we are about to launch in March a collab with Cover Swim.
Mhm.
And we have a long sleeve rash guard and then a swimsuit, a long sleeve zip up swimsuit, which are outstanding. The fabric quality is so insane. I wore them both. I like to trial run to the Bahamas last summer, and it's the best thing I put on my body at the beach.
Oh
Like
my
I
gosh.
cannot get enough. Keeps all the rays out. It dries like this. So comfortable all day long. So I'm really excited about that. Really, really excited. Swim is always something I've wanted to get into, and I
Mhm.
know we'll just continue to grow that category after this collaboration. So that was a treat.
That's so exciting and the perfect time for everyone going, on spring break trips and leading up into summer. So, my final question is where can people find you and your brand? Let them know your Instagram, social media handles, website URL to shop, anything that you want to share there.
Yes. So our website is sheridanfrench.com and Instagram is Sheridan French, and both are shoppable. We also have a list of retailers on our website that showcases all of our stockists, and depends on the season, but we're between 165 and 175 around the United States. A few are international, but most are in the States.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This was such a pleasure talking with you today on the Preppy Podcast.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Sorry I had to hide in a bedroom to avoid toddler interruptions, but
No, you
you
are
just
all
give me,
good.
like, can we do a virtual background of, like, library books or something really sophisticated?
Thank you so much for listening to the Preppy Podcast. I hope this put a little prep in your step for the day. Please subscribe, rate, and review on wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow along with @the Preppy Podcast on social media.